I was a good kid when I was a kid. I was always in church, proudly wore my Sunday school attendance buttons. We may only have cabbage and cornbread on the table to eat, but my mother always made sure we had enough gasoline to get to church on Sunday morning. Graduated with a degree in journalism. I went on to write a couple of books for Galilean Children's Home, wrote several grants, got them quite a bit of money. We started a program for abused women and their children, and we got a grant to almost $1 million to build housing, transitional housing for those folks. And that was pretty cool. While I was at Galilean, I also got involved in a ministry which still exists. It's called Born Free Ministry, where Galilean takes in babies that are born to mothers in prison. They keep the children until the mother's incarceration is completed, and then they take the babies to the mothers once or twice a week to see them, so there's still a bond there. And my wife and I, Carol, we founded the pro-life ministry in Somerset. I've done everything I could at the newspaper, and I was getting bored. After I wrote the books for Galilean, there really wasn't much left to do for them. It's 25, 30 years I was in home construction. My high living that I had come to enjoy came to an abrupt end and moved away from God. I was drinking consistently, daily. That was starting to become a problem. I started feeling like I was having some kind of a medical problem. Struggling with my speech. I couldn't walk a straight line, even on days when I hadn't had anything to drink. In December of 2005, I actually ended up in a homeless shelter for about 6 weeks. I had left my wife, absolutely destroyed her life with my activities. Divorce, which of course is the stupidest thing I ever did in my life, had not been finalized, but it was close. The shelter told me that I had to move because the shelter was primarily for women. And this particular evening, I had a phone call. It was real late at night. The voice said, "Larry, this is Gene. Don't want you to say anything. Just listen. I just want you to know that God can heal it all right now. He can forgive everything." Absolute beauty of that moment was just when I heard, "Larry, this is Gene," I became so convicted of sin that I don't know what else she said. I started confessing sin to God. I called Carol and asked her to forgive me. It wasn't an immediate response. She tracked down where I was, and she says, "Larry, you're sick. Our daughter and I have thought for the last 2 years that you were dying." So in early January of 2006, I suffered seizures where I collapsed. They put me in a medical coma. 4 days later, they woke me up and I was able to come off a breathing machine. I learned later that the family was advised to call the rest of the family in, and that I'd actually coded 2 times. A young man named Mark, he was 18, he attended the church where I was a member at the time. He worked the night shift at the hospital, and later that Mark would come to my room each night, and he would spend his half-hour lunch break basically standing there the whole time just praying. And he told his mother that I didn't move, he didn't understand, but he said, "Mom," I still kept praying. So it took a couple of years for me to get back to where I could walk. My biggest single problem was I could meet you, and then 10 minutes later I didn't know your name. So Carol would take me out in the garage. I would practice walking a straight line, but using that cut line in the concrete. She said, "Larry, you have to learn to walk in a straight line." I did that every day for months and months. Sometimes did when she wasn't there. I think Carol thought that I would leave her once I was back on my feet. She said, "Someday you may need to learn how to cook on your own." And so she proceeded to teach me how to cook. February 2009, I was talking to a neighbor out in his yard. One of my sister-in-laws came around the corner at a high speed. The doctors want the family to come to the hospital. Carol was there. She had been complaining for a week or so of low back pain. Carol told the doctor to start from the beginning, and it was revealed that she had the ovarian cancer. That was on Tuesday, and Friday morning at the Marquis Cancer Center in Lexington, which is, they did her surgery. About the only thing that she could handle to eat was some toast at that. And while she was having toast, I would go to the bathroom and clean out the hair out of the tub that had come out. I didn't say anything, she didn't say anything. She did touch me on the arm once, like, thanks. She went through 6 chemo treatments, 22 trial drug treatments she volunteered for. She was able to go back to work as administrative assistant at the church for about a year. The day of her retirement party was on Sunday afternoon after church. She had told me to be prepared to escort her out. But everything she wanted to say, she got to say. So in reality, she got to hear her own memorial service. By 6:30 that evening, I had her in an emergency room, and she was. A couple of days later, Marquis Cancer Center told her that cancer had come back, and it was everywhere, just everywhere. They told us that she might make it till Thanksgiving. She had already completed a portrait of Leah for Christmas, and she wanted one of Jay swinging a golf club. So she would work maybe 5-10 minutes over several days and completed that. And Leah, she had started a sock monkey. So her 2 sisters helped her finish that, buttons for eyes. One of the sisters got some yellow yarn and made pigtails. And so on Thanksgiving Day, we had our full Christmas. Then on January 11th, 2 years ago, she went in her sleep. We had always thought that I would be the first one to go. That wasn't the case, obviously. And I said, I pray that you and I, at least, are able to communicate something before you pass. She was unable to open her eyes, but she had 2 tears. And symbolically, to me, that means that one was that she loved everyone, and the second one was from her first glimpse of heaven. My daughter wanted me to move to Tennessee, primarily because of the grandchildren. So I arrived on January 30th. I had started looking for a church to call home. I wanted a place that felt the Holy Spirit and taught Jesus, believed that there was one true God, but I wanted a church where I could go as a family. But I went to some, and I was so disappointed. I want something small enough that we can call people family. At that time, I had looked around for something, some project to volunteer at. I found the Sunshine Soup Kitchen. There's 4 of us. We have coffee at Dairy Queen for a couple of hours, and I was sharing with them that I was still looking for a church. And I had asked them, what some of the smaller churches were, and John Short and Dave Yoder, they started telling me about Homestead, and it was because of the love that I felt from John and Dave initially inviting me to come, and then the immediate love that I felt when I met Monica and Judy and Dinah and others. This would become home. But I talk to Gene often. I'll never forget Gene calling, saying, Larry, this is Gene. How God used her and her story to become part of my story. I think praying and reading our Bible and participating in church, those are all vital things to know about God and His love. But the greatest sermon we will ever tell is our life. I'm Larry. This is my story. and I look forward to hearing your story.